And if so, then up to what extent is the responsibility of the filmmaker?
It's a responsibility of the filmmaker only to the extent of the audience expecting it. If your audience is expecting neutrality, if you are seeking an audience that is coming to the theaters or is coming to the film with an expectation of an objective examination of the subject, then it becomes the responsibility. It falls upon the filmmaker's shoulders to kind of take that responsibility. If the filmmaker is making a film we took the examples of extreme example of somebody like Leni Riefenstahl making a documentary like The Birth of a Nation, or in no, the Triumph of the Will. I keep on like mixing The Birth of a Nation, Triumph of the Will, same film. If you're making a film where you do not have the responsibility to your viewers, then that's negotiable. And I think filmmakers, filmmakers uh, are really the bridges in these negotiations, in these conversations, in these dialogues. They're participants, they're active participants themselves, bringing their own worldviews on board. They're also bridges and negotiators. They're also like the middle people to have these dialogues and negotiations. And in that, I think for me, I would definitely usually and only go to a filmmaker who I think is neutral, is objective to a certain extent. And neutrality does not always mean balancing. I mean, we have had that trouble with Proposition for a Revolution. Because Aam Aadmi Party and their working is largely transparent, is largely fair, is largely quite inspiring, honestly speaking. We find it very difficult to keep on balancing it with their criticisms, because we don't have enough material to criticize, and we have more material that is clearly clearly worthy of praise. And as filmmakers, in trying to maintain our claim of neutrality, maintain our credibility as neutral observers, we have found that challenge many times with this film, where we keep on digging for material that would be critical of them, or that could show them in a light which could become criticism, and we haven't found enough of that material. So neutrality is not always necessarily balanced way of looking. Neutrality would for me mean an objective, reasonable, logical, rigorous examination. And I think it's still abstract. I think it's a conversation that has been had over and over again.
Does it emerge when you are editing the film, or does it come across when you are filming? Because like you said, I mean, you may think that you are going out there on the field, looking for people who may have a different perspective, but you may not. So I mean, how the balance that neutrality? I was wondering whether it emerges on the editing table, or is it always there when you are taking the camera?
Well, in case of documentaries, of course, what you do not constrain yourself as a documentary filmmaker, as a documentarian. You try to document everything that you see. You do not make these decisions usually while shooting. You would, whether you want to eventually show this on film or not. If you are there, you're going to record it. You're going to document it as a documentarian. So a lot of these decisions are made on the editing table. The decisions of the perspective of the film, or the nature of the film, or the argument that the film is building towards, etc. These are perspectives that are built usually on the editing table. If you're making a film, if you are Anand Patwardhan, and if you're making a film on called War and Peace, you are, while you are being neutral and reasonable and objective in your reason, but you are also an advocate of an idea. You're also building towards a very specific and clear argument, and you would edit in a way that argument is clarified, and that still does not take away for me the neutrality of the author. The author, I think, is still neutral, because the author is not manipulating data or statistics or information to make that argument. The author is taking the information and statistics and the data that is excessive, that in Anand's case he has at his disposal, and using that material to build an argument that he thinks is valid. Neutrality as a value itself, needs further examination.
I really like the last
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
To take
I
last
really
question.
like the last bit of your lecture when you spoke about evolution and responses. So I'm picking up the thread from where you said about junk cinema, about it being, stimulating automatic response, a very primitive response. So I often get very irritated with reviews which say, this is a movie in which you should go leaving your brain in the house. But why should I do that? I mean, I'm going there to be entertained, to be, moved, to laugh without being manipulated by the director. But there are a lot of young people around who tend to say things like, I just want to be entertained. I don't want to watch something heavy tonight. I'll just watch a movie which just makes me laugh. So, what do you have to say about such movies, and what is your take on it? Leave your brain at home cinema.
Yeah, I think both Anand and
Namrata,
is here.
yeah, exactly.
Namrata is here. I mean, like, both should respond.
Yeah.
We need quick response.
No, I agree with you completely. I can't. I mean, I've become extremely intolerant towards most cinema that I consume. Like my consumption of cinema is really plummeted. Till a certain age in my life, I'd seen everything that there was ever produced till I was 16 or 17, and it started decreasing from that point onwards. There was actually a specific film that kind of triggered that decrease that I saw, and then from that, I've spoken about this in many, and now I'm like trying to stay away from controversies. But anyways, I mean, it could have been any film. It could have been any Bollywood film. It would mean the same thing for many people. But it really started decreasing more and more, and now it's plummeted to the point that I can't stand most cinema made in the world. I can't. Not just Indian. I mean, Indian cinema usually does not even usually figure in my periphery of what I'm allowing to let in my periphery of seeing things. But most Indian cinema doesn't. And it's kind of extended now to cinema that is being made around the world, theatre that I'm oversaturated, I'm exhausted,
Anand, we are tweeting. Anand doesn't tolerate most of the cinema, world cinema. We are tweeting.
Yeah, go ahead. I really can't.
Please tweet.
I mean, I was on the jury last year on 13th Film Festival, and my co-jury members were like, we don't want to sit next to you because you're just like prejudicing everyone. Every film I would be like putting in my hair and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with the world? So I'm a little oversaturated, I'm over-consumed. But even within the framework of Indian cinema, I think I can't wait for people to start engaging with ideas that are really relevant to us. I really want to be entertained, but nothing entertains me. I mean, I've really for the longest time not found anything that entertains me. So, yeah, no.
Yeah, in the line of duty, I can't be, as dismissive as perhaps you are. I have to watch movies, but having said that, there is so much of good cinema perhaps that I haven't watched in the 10 odd years that I have been reviewing movies, that at times, you feel like running away from theatres because you end up wasting time on movies which don't deserve the 2 hours of your time or 3 hours of your time. I have also started becoming quite, started discriminating in terms of if I have 400 words to write every week and have X film this week with a Y film, and I've been kind of, I gravitate more towards Y, then I may choose to go for a film which presumes to be more exciting. But yeah, I mean, I can't be like you and
Yeah, of course.
And having said, not just that, I have kind of grown up on a very healthy diet of mainstream cinema. I've grown up on Bachchan, I've grown up on Andy and Man.
So that's why I said I'm oversaturated.
Yeah, but sometimes if a mainstream film comes, there is a high in watching a good mainstream film, let me put it that way. And there is a great high in a film which challenges you in zones which go beyond entertainment. So that's the way I look at it. Yeah, I mean, entertainment, there are fewer and fewer films which are quote-unquote entertaining, but whenever they do come, it's nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even looking at I'm not even talking in terms of mainstream or non-mainstream. I'm as audiences as people of this world right now, we have the privilege and the great fortune to really access anything. We have the greatest literature that has already been written and lying out there in libraries that we we are never going to read. Our lifetimes are not going to be enough to read all the great cinema, all the great literature that has already been made. And then we give our time and our engagement to things that are going to be really be detrimental for our well-being and our intellectual health. That is problematic for me. So I do not think that we should give any minute, a single minute, to things that are going to infect us any further. Like it's like just been enough of crap out there. And the reason I mentioned sex and violence as pleasure-giving stimuli in the environment is because most cinema is built upon these two paradigms of sex and violence, of food gathering, food saving, and sex in India gets euphemized to romance and filial love, of course. So romance and filial love. So, but the cinema, most cinema and most popular literature and popular narratives in the world are built upon these two paradigms, and there is a strong evolutionary reason why, because we